And good evening to everyone. We're live. And welcome to our Sunday live conversations, where we get into a different way of thinking, where we touch into mindsets, we touch into health. We're trying to teach you that a wealthy, healthy life is different. And welcome to my co-pilot, Wupe. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, Munyumba. It's been a good Sunday, very restful. How are you doing? I love the energy and I'm super excited for tonight.
No, we're good. We're just gonna allow everyone to kind of settle in and to get ready. I'm getting ready for, this is month 7 of the year. You know what they always say about quarter 3? This is where
Mm,
every goal now gets reached. This is the
yeah.
most
Or
productive.
testing.
So no pressure, no pressure. This is the
No
make or break
pressure,
quarter.
but yeah.
whatever you said you wanted to set out to do this year, this is the time we actually have to
Now is
now
the
see the
time.
results, and
Yeah.
we get
But
to
how
see
are
the
you
people who've
feeling
been
about your
slacking.
goals? Yeah. But how are you feeling about your goals personally now that we are in quarter 3? Are you safe? Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'll tell you this. My story is kind of funny, but when it comes to the health part, I had this
Mhm.
little slump around May, but I've come back with full force. But when it comes to the work part, I think the book that changed my year is Deep Work by Professor Cal
Mm,
Newport. And he
mm.
helped me really zone in. So that
Yeah.
has helped me. Now I'm starting to see my rhythm getting back. I'm a rhythm person. So once I feel
That's
the rhythm, the
awesome.
train keeps going.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. I mean, you know how it is, the wheel of life. It's not very often that you have it balanced on all sides. But if you have more parts of it working than others, then you're good. Love that for you.
Okay. So, to everybody who's with us right now, if you're here with us live, please drop us a comment. Where are you joining us from? Give us your name. Let's hear from you. Today's going to be a big conversation about health, about entrepreneurship, mindsets. People, we polled our people and they told us today they want to be hearing about things. The number one topic you all want to hear about today is mindsets for success. And today we've got
Mm.
Kim Otteby, who is the founder and the MD of Umoyo Natural Health, and who has actually risen through the entrepreneurial ranks and given us one of the greatest growth stories in this country. I think everybody has bumped into one of Umoyo or so, and you keep thinking, where did this come from?
I
So
know.
for those of you who've got that, please join us today. Give us your comments. Get your questions ready if you have questions. Hello, Naomi. Hello, Kondwani. Welcome today for all of you. And we are about to kick off in just a minute or two with
Mm.
Miss Kim Otteby. So if you have questions, because this is an opportunity to ask questions about health, this is also an opportunity if you're an entrepreneur to ask an entrepreneur who's been through the journey about what the
Mm.
journey is like, and somebody who understands what mindset a realignment we need, also what mindsets we need to pursue. So this is your
Okay.
opportunity, people, to ask the burning questions. So don't
Mm.
lose the opportunity. We have got some people, even in the Freedom Fighters group, who have already zinged in to ask questions. So we've even got some in from there, but we have a full schedule. And
Mm.
with that,
Yeah.
I'd like to once again introduce Miss Kim Otteby. I'm about to bring her on camera here. This is Mrs. Kim Otteby, who is the MD and the founder of Umoyo. Good evening to you, Kim. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. It's so exciting. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wupe, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. So, just a reminder to everyone to please share this broadcast so that we can get as many people get this very important information out and we can share and grow together. So, Kim, I am so excited. I have been holding my breath for this. This is the first show where it is two ladies over the men. So, yay to gender. So, just getting started, would like to get to know a little bit about you in about a minute or so. Who is Kim in her own words?
Yeah, I'm originally from Sweden, but I came to Zambia when I was 3 years old. So this is home.
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
who am I? I'm a person who has always followed my passion. This is something that's very, very core to me and very important to me. I'm very driven. Another thing that's really important to me is growth. I want to feel that I'm growing all the time and every day getting better in some way. And the whole entrepreneurship journey, that was kind of something that I stumbled into as I was following my passion.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, your field of entrepreneurship, actually, Kim, has got to do with natural health, which is actually quite an important topic for many of us because it's something that we're all starting to grapple with, and also how to deal with health. So, in our last two, we've been having a theme where we've been talking about health and the importance of actually being more vigilant about it. In our last two Sunday Lives, we've had Dr. Eliplius Chibuaya and Fitness Muya, who have both talked about the rise of what we call the silent killers in society. And those have been the chronic illnesses, the non-communicable diseases. And we've all cited trends like urban development, less active jobs. We've been transitioning from organic foods to processed foods. And that's been the trends that have been coming around. So wanted to ask from your perspective, in terms of the new trends in health we're seeing, do you agree that maybe it has been the way we've changed our lifestyles and we need to be more vigilant about our health? Or do you see things a little bit differently?
No, I agree. I agree. It's how our lifestyles have changed. I mean, if we look at the blue zones of the world, where you have the people who live the longest and are the healthiest in the world, where they live to over 100 years old, the common things that they have, they're eating natural foods. That's number one. They have incorporated they're moving their body daily. They're doing exercises as part of their daily habits. Maybe they live on a hill, they have to go down to the village and, to buy their bread in the morning and then walk up again. But it's exercise. They're moving their body. Another thing is that they have good, strong connections with other people, with the community. That's so important as well for health. So there are many things that feed into having a healthy lifestyle. And it's difficult these days as well because we have an information overload. It's not from lack of information. We know what we're supposed to be doing, right? If I asked you, what are you supposed to do for a healthy lifestyle? You could probably tell me everything you should be eating and what you shouldn't be eating, right? But we don't do it. So it's not that we don't have the information, although the information can also be difficult sometimes. You kind of get too much, For instance, you have some people who will say, you should just be eating meat, and they are on the carnivore diet, and then you have and they feel great, and then you have the complete opposite, people who are vegan, who don't even take dairy, and they feel amazing, How does that work? Well, one thing they have in common is that they're not eating processed foods. So I think that is key. And that's what you were saying, our lifestyles have changed. We're eating more and more processed foods because also it's convenient. We have less time, so we don't want to spend too much time preparing our meals. So processed foods, that's a real biggie. But then it's other things, we've invented all these appliances so we don't have to do so much physical labor, so we're not naturally moving our bodies as much. We're more stressed. We have more things that stress us than we did perhaps, 100, 200, 300 years ago. So stress is another big thing. We've invented lights so we can be up much later, so we're not getting as much sleep. Definitely lifestyle is the key, and the changes that we've gone through definitely have had an impact on our health.
So it's actually quite interesting you said that because there's a book I had actually started reading that was called Ikigai, where I think they were going through why the centurions in Japan were also living longer. And it trends to a lot of the things you were saying, community connection. It has to do with the fact that they move a lot. In fact, I actually saw an incentive in Singapore where they were fitting people with Apple Watches, and they were giving people government and tax incentives if they took 10,000 steps a day. And I was like, that's an actual interesting government policy on health. So this actually drifts into the second question. There are two schools of thought about how to improve someone's health, for someone to live a long and prosperous life. And one school of thought is I need to have as much access to healthcare interventions. So, in other words, I need to make sure I can go to a hospital anytime. I need to make sure I've got medicine, everything. That's what's going to give me a long life. While the other school of thought is I need to make changes to my lifestyle to make sure that I'm combating any of these things ever happening. One advocates for health infrastructure, the other one advocates for supplementation and behavior. So which school of thought, or if any other one, do you ascribe to in terms of managing your health?
Yeah, well, for me, it is crystal clear. It's the lifestyle. It has to be, and it all comes back to you have to take personal responsibility for your health. Nobody's can do it for you, but a lot of us, we're looking for that magic bullet, that magic pill. We want to eat and drink what we want and not exercise, and then the doctor will sort us out. But it doesn't work like that, You have to take ultimately personal responsibility for yourself. Nobody can do it for you. So that's always where it's going to start. Having amazing medical facilities, that's all well and good. And I very grateful that we have the medicines and the hospitals that we have, particularly for, if you're in a car accident or there's some kind of emergency. But and then it's absolutely essential. But for your everyday illnesses, which is what really kills people, things like heart disease and heart attacks and diabetes and things like that, that is on you. That is on how you have lived your life, not for 1 year, but for like 10 years, 2 decades, 3 decades. It all adds up, but it's never too late to make changes. That's something I want to get across as well.
That is very important, Kim, and I'm really glad that you brought it up. And just listening to you as we have begun talking, I can hear that you're a very intentional person, and you have already mentioned that, we have to take personal responsibility for our health, because the things that count is everything we're doing now. We're making an investment. But if we have someone who's like, I really like what Kim has said, but where do I get started? What do you tell such a person?
Yeah, like I said, knowledge, it's not a lack of knowledge. You probably know what you should be doing, right? And if you don't, you just get online and there's tons of information out there. But really, it starts with small changes. But not a lot of us operate like that. We get to New Year's Eve and we're saying, this year I'm going to transform my life. I'm going to get healthy, and we want to make all the changes all at once. And 1-2 weeks down the line, we kind of fail, right? It's too much to do all at once. So the key is really small changes, one step at a time, because it has to do with, you got to make it part of who you are, of your habits. It has to become part of your identity. So for instance, for me, I think of myself as a healthy, fit person. I am fit, healthy, and strong. So it's part of my identity. It's just what I do. Going to the gym, I don't have to think about it. I just do it because it's part of who I am. So it's almost like changing your identity. And how do you do that? It's with those small changes. You reinforce it. So, maybe if you do no exercise and you don't see yourself as fit at all, maybe you start going for a 15-minute walk in the morning. And if you start reinforcing that, you're going to change how you think about yourself. And suddenly you're the type of person who exercises, So it's just identify small things that you can do consistently. It could also be if you eat a lot of sugar, which is a big problem in Zambia, start reducing that, but don't try and do everything at once. Focus on one thing, get that right, and then slowly you'll see that it progresses.
I will definitely attest to that. That I had that. I said, I think in our first Sunday live, that when I was a rugby player, I had that identity. So training 3 times a day was natural for me. But when I stopped playing rugby, then the identity went away. So training became a mountain for me. So this year, I think my goal was to tell myself I am a temple. My body is a temple, and I don't put trash in temples. So if I don't do that at church, then I don't do that to my body. And that's kind of what's actually helped me this year. as a battle. But let's get into, now we've talked about health, okay? And we're now talking about, now we talked about health, and you've developed a way that people can actually embrace and take control. And I was telling you off air that Umoyo, which is your baby, your creation, that you now came into, you and your team have built this new way of life, or a way of life that was already there, but we never really embraced it, to actually help people take control of their health again. You know, and I said it before, Umoyo has helped me take control of my health and helped me say, I'm not going to wait to get sick. I'm going to make my body healthy as much as I can. So I think Wupe, I'll hand it over to Wupe. I just wanted to say, now we want to talk into Umoyo, but Wupe, it's over to you.
Thank you, Munyumba. Yeah, so I have been looking forward to this section because for a long time, I didn't know who the person behind Umoyo was until I met Munyumba and he told me about you. And I'm like, oh my God, finally, I get to meet her and see what she's about. So talk us through the story behind Umoyo. What is the backstory?
Yeah, it's quite an incredible story, to be honest. But I'll try and do it in broad strokes. Just 1 second. I have my kids here, guys. Yeah. So, Maya. No, Maya, please. Yeah. So sorry. I have a house full of kids. Okay. Yeah. So I've always been like an achiever, and I've just gone with the flow. You know, like at school, I try to do the best I could, get into the best university, and then I try to get the best grades, and then I try to get the best job, and then I got this amazing strategy consultant job in London. You know, and it great, and then I just like one day I woke up and I'm like, well, what now? You know, I never thought about what is it I want to do. I just went with what other people thought was what you should do. And it got to the point where I was waking up and with a dread in my stomach, you know, like, I don't want to go to work. This is not meant for me. And it got so bad that from one day to the next, I essentially quit. I said, that is it. I'm not doing any more of this. And people thought I was insane, you know, like, how can you give up such an incredible career, you know? And what I did was I quit with not having anything to fall back on. I didn't have another job or a plan or anything. I quit and I literally got on a plane and went to Barbados. I don't even know where that is on the world map, but I went to Barbados and I became a windsurfing instructor. That's what I did. And it was the best thing I could have done because I basically got out of my head and I got into something that was very physical. Windsurfing is you're on a board with a sail and you're going like 50 kilometers an hour over water, you know? And it just gave me that space to really connect with what am I here for? What is my purpose on this earth? You know, what am I truly passionate about? And it's always been health. It's always been natural health and particularly nutrition. So I decided, well, this is what I'm going to do with my life. But I'd studied economics and management. There was nothing about health in there, you know, so I had to go back to university. And to do that, I needed chemistry and biology. I had physics and maths. So I took a summer and just learned biology and chemistry A level so I could get into university and study nutritional medicine. But that's what I did because I was so passionate. This is what I want my life to be about. And then after that, I went and did internships. I sought out the best in the world so I could learn from them. That took me to America. And then I just came back to Zambia to visit my parents. They were still here, thinking, oh, there's no way I could do anything with what I want to do in Zambia. There's no market. Nobody knows what I'm even about, you know? But I love Africa. Africa is my home. Zambia is my home. And when I came back to visit my parents, I realized that. So I thought, let me just test this. So I didn't know anyone. And I decided, let me organize a little health fair and see how that goes. So I just reached out to people who somehow did something within the sphere of health. And I organized a little health fair at a restaurant. Back then it was called Chit Chat. You probably know it, Omela Mumba Road there, yeah. And I organized this health fair, and the response was incredible. It was incredible. And I just thought, maybe I could do it here, because my dream was to open up a health clinic, a natural health clinic. And I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to do it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, so be it. But I'm going to try. So I did. And I started small. I was living with my parents. I did it. I basically saw people for nutritional consultations at their house, you know. And then after a while, I rented a little apartment where I lived. And then I converted one room to a treatment room and one room to my office. And I worked there. And then eventually I rented a whole house. And that became the Umoyo Clinic. So it was a one-man band to begin with, you know, and then slowly it grew. And we were doing incredible therapies there, because I basically took the best from what I'd learned from these top places and brought them here. So we were doing all sorts of detoxification programs on people, helping them get onto healthier lifestyles. But then there were no quality products back then to support them. So I thought, this doesn't work. Where can I get quality products? And that's when I started importing, and I opened the first shop, and that was Arcades. And literally I was just walking at Arcades. Back then we only had 2 shopping malls. It was Arcades and Manda Hill, you know, that was it. And I was walking past at Arcades, and there was a shop that was free. And I thought, let me just do this. I had no idea how, but I just said, no, this is what I need to do. So I opened the first health shop, and then basically ran with that for several years. We had the health clinic and then the health shop, many years like that. And that kind of built our foundation. And then after time, we expanded, and now we have 9 health shops as well as our online shop. And just a few years ago, we changed our strategic focus quite dramatically. And now our focus is really to we are manufacturers of natural, healthy foods and drinks. And that's really where the future will be for us. So you can see it's quite the journey, and there have been quite a few transitions along the way. But the one key thing is that I just followed my passion. That is what Umoyo is about. I wanted to help people. And now with the manufacturing, it's all about empowering people through good nutrition, because that's so fundamental to our physical health, our mental health, and to give people that healthy option, that healthy choice. Yeah.
You know, I really, there's a part I really love before we drift on to the next part of you went to Barbados. Because I actually did a study of entrepreneurs on who spoke on, what was that thing called, a startup grind, where they were having talks with entrepreneurs. And what I discovered was 75% of the people they were interviewing spent at least 3 years or more outside of Zambia. And what I simply mean is, it's like they got away, and that's where they either had this mindset shift or realignment. Because there's a guy who studied entrepreneurship who said a lot of people who build businesses have a tendency to have gone somewhere. And I tend to think, and I don't know what your views are on this, just quickly before we branch off, is how much do you think travel is more of, because we kind of look at travel as a luxury, but how much do you think of it as getting somewhere else is more of an investment in, you know, just having that different view of life?
Oh, I think it's essential to just broaden your perspective, because you can get, you get so locked into the community that you're in, the people that you hang around with, everything. And, I've been in Zambia so many years now, and sometimes I feel also like I'm a bit stuck here. I'm not exposed to all these new ideas, but that's no longer true, because through the internet, we can get exposed to whatever we want. It's limitless. And especially since COVID, everything is online. So I no longer see it as I don't have to travel. I can still expose myself to whatever it is I want online. But yeah, it is so crucial to just broaden your mind in any way that you can. Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. It's just something I thought of. We'll pay back to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Munyumba. I love your story because every time, and it's the women for me, every time I listen to a woman's story who just went after her dream, there's always the part where you get to a point, and I think it's about being very emotionally oriented, where they're like, you know what, I know this is not my path, so I'm letting it go. I am on the opposite side, right? So I've always known I'm supposed to be doing something else and not this, but I've never really had the courage to step out and say, you know what, I quit and I'm going to follow my dream. If there is someone who is watching this and now you're thinking back, telling us a story about how you let it go and went and pursued your dream, would you do it that way still? Would you be like, okay, I'm letting it go to do that? Or are you like, that was the tougher route. Maybe you should go this way.
Oh no, for me personally, I think to find your passion and pursue that, that is the way to go. Because
Mhm.
I personally believe that if you don't do that, you will never fulfill your potential. Because if you're not doing it for passion, you will never put in the effort, the determination, the resilience. You just won't have it. So for me, you got to find your passion, and then pursue it. That is fundamental to me and my experience in life.
About that. So and I think this is a very important segue into it. So I know you now said, okay, health is really important. We've got to give people an option. So what was it about the organic option, the natural option that you really gravitated towards? Because you could have done anything in healthcare. You sound like the kind of person who you could have become a doctor if you wanted. Like if that was truly you, you would have just gone and done it.
Yeah.
So why this path that you decided I'm going to go with the organic treatment? What was it about it, and what should people look at it for?
Uh, I think it was because my interest started with nutrition. You know, I read my mother's nutritional books that I found on the shelf, and I would implement all sorts of things in our meal times at home. Like, for instance, nobody was allowed to drink water while we ate because that wasn't good for digestion. And I was like 10 years old, kind of thing. I was the kid who came to school with a lunchbox with a mashed banana and garlic because I'd read that garlic was good for you. I mean, like, And when you learn about nutrition, that's when you really start to understand how, you know, the cleaner the food, the better it is for you. When you start adding all these chemicals, it's not just in the food, it's in our cosmetics, it is in our cleaning products, it's in everything, we can't escape it. But the more chemicals we put and expose our bodies to, whether it's from food colorings, preservatives, whatever it is, this has a very detrimental effect on our health. So with Umoyo, because I come from a background of nutrition, I really want to make sure that we are creating healthy products. So for instance, if we look at, let's say the Umoyo baobab juice, it's made from real baobab. It's not like we flavored it with baobab. It is real baobab in there, which means that you're going to get all that nutritional value from baobab. Or our red passion, it's real hibiscus, real lemongrass, and real cinnamon in there. And the red color, it's not from food coloring, it's from the hibiscus. So it's quality natural rather than a lot of the products you find on the market. Unfortunately, it is water with sugar. Maybe they put some carbonation in there and they put some flavoring and they put some coloring, so there's nothing natural. All of that is just going to take away. It's going to subtract from your health. And Umoyo, it's all about adding to your health, helping to build your body up through good nutrition. So it's because my background is from nutrition that I chose that path.
And just there's I'm gonna skip ahead a bit here because you did say something that's mindset oriented, which I truly love. And I think your story is really opening us up to a lot of how these little influences in our upbringing really affect us. Because you talked about your mother having health and nutrition books. So I was watching an interview of this guy named Justin Smith, who was the producer for Jay-Z's Rockefeller Records, and he was the guy who created this sound. And he said he was raised by a mother who was an educator. That gave him discipline to become a producer. And he was raised by a father who was a programmer who liked to play music on the side. So he learned how to deal with music technology from his father. And what I saw about him, and then he was raised in the era of hip hop and technology. So he said the trends he was raised, he grew up around, and the house he grew up in really shaped his direction. I can say even from myself, I'm the son of an auditor and an educator. So financial educator is like an amalgamation of my parents. And I grew up in the rise of the stock markets, in the rise of financial markets. So really the trends I grew up in and everything has come around. So I want to go back to your youth, your childhood. What are the things you grew up around in your household and the trends in society that you grew up around that kind of informed this decision for Kim to say, I'm going all in on health here, on nutrition? Because that energy comes from somewhere. I always believe, and let's add this, God is intentional about the time we're born in and the family we're born in. And if we dig in deep, you can often find that your gifts are lit up by somewhere in your story. So maybe I'm just thinking out loud here, but what about your story, your youth led to this path?
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's so true. And sometimes we don't see it until much later in life where we can kind of connect the dots. But yeah, my mother was a big influence. She was big into health. I mean, in our household, we didn't have cow's milk. She made milk from sesame seeds, and we would fight over it because it was so delicious, you know? So that's where the health came from. And then my father was a big influence, but he was the hard worker. Oh my gosh, he was the workhorse. So that work ethic came from him. And I've never met anyone who has such an impeccable integrity as my father as well, which really had a big effect on me. So for instance, the brand values for Umoyo, it's quality products, and natural, it's all natural. And the third one is integrity. You know, what it says on the bottle, what is in the product, for instance, you know, just as an example. So yeah, no, I think definitely my parents have shaped me and have had a big effect on the way forward. Yes.
What about the time you were raised in? Sorry, I'll hand it over to you. But what about the time you were raised in? Was it a time where natural health started being talked about? Was it because of the trends of the fact that we're deteriorating, we're moving away from organics and into processed? Did that shape who you've become now?
No, for me, the story is a bit more personal. I had my own health challenges, and I had to take responsibility for my health and figure out. Well, the big thing was when I realized the power of what I was eating, the power that had on my body, and experiencing that myself, it made me curious and I wanted to learn more. And I realized it doesn't just affect the physical body, it affects the mind. There's so much, it's so interesting. And that is really what fueled my appetite for it.
Sorry, we'll put back to you now.
Thank you, Munyumba. That's okay. Very good questions there and very insightful information from you, Kim. I think we can quickly now get into Kim as an entrepreneur. You have told us about how, you're doing that. You did this starting from the basis of passion, right? And a lot of us, I think, need to learn that lesson. I, for one, need to learn that lesson. And I just want to hear in a few words, if you could describe your entrepreneurial journey in 3 words, what would those be? And then we will dive into each one of them and just break them down.
Well, the first one, we got to go with passion. I mean, there's no way around that.
We can't leave that.
The first one is passion. Because another thing you might not know about me was that I also kind of stepped away from Umoyo for 5 whole years while I pursued another passion of mine. I owned and operated a gym here in Lusaka, CrossFit Amaka. And that was because I was so passionate. I developed this passion for fitness as well. So passion definitely is part of it. And then secondly, I would say determination. and everything, you know, that entails: determination, resilience. Nothing was going to stop me. Has been a big part of my entrepreneurial journey. And that is very much connected to passion as well. Because without my passion, I wouldn't have had that determination. I would have given up years ago, for sure. You know? And the third one that has been big in my entrepreneurial journey has been flexibility, allowing for the business to evolve, to change, not just saying this is what we're doing, we're sticking with this. No, being a bit more flexible around that. So passion, determination, flexibility.
Okay, we have talked quite a bit about the passionate side of it, and I think I had even dived earlier, and I'm like, oh, tell me, how do you get there? I just want to hear from you on the determination side. And even before I go to the determination side, something I hear a lot of people ask, and I can understand why, right? Because the passion element is far removed from the question is, I have 5,000 kwacha, what business do I start, right? That goes to choosing a business idea. What am I supposed to do? So if we have an entrepreneur who's like, I want to be like Kim one day, and I want to build a great brand like Umoyo, how do I come down to that idea? And I can't leave my job right now. Where does that person begin on their journey on entrepreneurship?
Yeah, you know, everyone's journey is going to be very different. Someone came up to me the other day and they said, Kim, you should do this. Wouldn't that be incredible? And I'm like, well, you know, you're so passionate about it. I think that's something for you to do, you know? Like, I can't tell you what the best way is for you, what your journey is. You've got to figure that out for yourself. Nobody can tell you. But yeah, the longer you leave it in life, the harder it is, because you have more to lose, you know, if you decide to quit your job and follow your path. For me, it was quite early on in my life, and I didn't have that much to lose, to be honest, you know. I didn't have responsibilities. I didn't have a family back then. I didn't have kids, you know, so it was a little bit easier for me just to go all in. But I think life stage will have an impact. And if you have a steady job, but you have an idea on the side, nothing's stopping you from exploring that idea on the side. You know, you also have to be responsible for what, you know, your family or whatever responsibilities you have. So start on the side, but ultimately you're going to have to make a decision, because it's kind of like that saying, you got to burn your boats in order to take the island. I don't know if you've heard that expression. I think the story is something like, there were these Japanese soldiers way back when, and they sailed to this island. Their idea was that they needed to conquer this island. And they were very few of these soldiers, and the armies of this island was huge. So their odds of winning was very small. But what the leader did, what the commander did, was he ordered the ships to be burnt, which meant, like, for the army, they were either going to conquer that island or they were going to die. And sometimes you have to go in full force with, this is what I'm going to do. There is no plan B. I'm going to go in full force, because when you have that determination, you have that focus, you'll be operating at a completely different level compared to just kind of dipping your toe in the water, you know?
All or nothing.
There's something I really also have picked up from your story. From leaving your consulting job, you went windsurfing, you went and got mentored at one point. You decided, I'm going to learn from people. You talked again about learning again. There seems to be this common thread. Like you said, if I'm going to go into nutrition, let me go and get a degree in it. There seems to be this common thread that every starting point for you is always about learning something as the starting point to getting into something. Am I correct there?
Well, like I kind of mentioned in the beginning, for me, if I'm not growing, I don't feel good about myself. It's part of my DNA. I want to always feel that I'm moving forward, that I'm learning something. And there were a period of time, years, where I wasn't. And it was a very difficult time mentally for me until I shifted that. So it's just part of who I am. I feel it's so important that we keep learning, that we keep growing. And I explore different things all the time, you know. At the moment, I've started doing a course in leadership, but I will also do, like, I took 2 years ago, I took a deep dive into cryptocurrencies because I thought, oh, I need to know about this, you know. So whatever I find interesting, I go into and I take a deep dive. Yeah, it's just, I think, who I am.
You know, and I think for me that's a trigger point. I've told everyone that all change starts with learning. The hunger to know kind of gives you that confidence to then try things. So I'm looking into looking at your story, today's generation, and this is not a dig at them. This is just how we are now. You could have just said, you know what, I'm going to become a social influencer in health living. I'm going to put up a lot of posts about it, and then I'm going to stop right there, because that's what we do in our generation. We don't really go that extra step. What drove you to say, I'm not just going to create, because I know you talked about the fact that you moved from a clinic to an actual product. I'm not just going to talk about this, I'm going to actually create a service, something that people can actually use and do. What was that spark that said, I'm not going to settle into the comfort zone of just being the influential voice, but I'm going to be the hands that do something about it?
Well, firstly, back then, I don't know if Facebook even existed. Like, there was no job called influencer, you know, so it was a different time. But I still influenced and you know, there was no market. So a lot of what I did also was trying to get information out there. I wrote in the Post newspaper for 7 years, every single week. You know, I would get on TV shows to talk about health whenever they invited me. We were like 3 radio shows every week as well. So there was a lot of that. But remember, my passion was, I want to open a health clinic. I want to help people. That was what I wanted to do from the start. The whole influencing and teaching others about what to do with their health, that kind of just came with a packet, if you will, with a package. My goal was, I want to open up a health clinic. The rest of the journey, that evolved for various different reasons. Just to give you an example, you know, when COVID hit, Umoyo almost went under because we were importing our products in dollars, all our rents, and we have 9 retail shops and our head office. So that's 10 rents in dollars. You know, rent in this country is dollars in all the shopping malls. So we're importing dollars, our rents are in dollars, yet we sell in kwacha, we're earning kwacha. And if you remember, during the COVID era, the exchange rate started running like crazy. So that equation, that didn't go together anymore. The company was taking a nosedive, plus all our supply chains were interrupted. You couldn't get vitamin C. It was impossible to get vitamin C, you know, and everyone wanted vitamin C, just to give you an example. So I had to really sit down and think, well, what now? What do we do? And that's where we changed the strategy of Umoyo completely, from being trader, retailer, to becoming a manufacturer. I need to buy raw materials in Kwacha. I then add value to them, and then I sell them in Kwacha in Zambia, but with the potential of exporting and earning foreign exchange. You know, so I don't even remember what your original question was now. Why I launched into this.
Neither do I. I'm just following. Neither do I.
But that is so good. Stay on it. We love it.
The purpose of that, you know, why am I producing a product? It started with my first passion, but then some of the choices along the way was also out of necessity, you know?
So, you know, you've really mentioned passion a lot. And I've always had this struggle with the terminology, with not even the terminology. I've just had a struggle with the concept myself, because I agree. You cannot give your energy if you are not passionate about it. And there's so much of it is about your determination and your energy. So what I'm hearing from you is there's a difference between what I call activity focused passion and people focused passion. And I get this a lot from entrepreneurs who stand the test of time, who are willing to get through COVID, like you just mentioned, instead of just packing up and saying, this isn't fun anymore, I'm out. That their passion is not specifically just about the activity, but it's about what they can do for people and what this activity or this product can do for people. Am I reading it correctly that you seem to have the passion for the people and what natural health can do for them?
Yes, 100%. That is what underlies everything that we are doing. I mean, part of our mission statement is empowering people by providing great health products, you know. That's basically our mission, you know, so that they can go out and live their best life. That is what we are about. So yes, I would definitely agree with that. But something just add to that, you know, it started very much from a health perspective for me. I was very interested in health. I could not satisfy my appetite in terms of learning more about health. And I read every health book out there. I just loved it. But over time that shifted because remember, I started as a therapist in the clinic, very much in the business. You know, I was the business. I was the one seeing all the clients. And at one point, that had to change because I had to start working essentially on the business. I had to start managing the business, not being the therapist helping people. And as I made that transition, and that took quite a while for me to change my mind to understand that distinction. But as I changed, I developed a new passion for entrepreneurship, yes, I was still very much interested in health and helping people, but now it became more. Now it became, where can I take this company? What can we do with this? So now my passion is very much in terms of entrepreneurship, mindset, because there were so many changes that had to happen up here for me to achieve that. And now also we're about to take Umoyo to a whole nother level. And it all starts with me. You know, like, Tony Robbins, he always says it's the psychology of the owner that is the limiting factor in any business. That's me for Umoyo, you know. So unless I can expand this, Umoyo isn't going anywhere.
Love that. The psychology. I'd like everyone to write that down. That to me is my mic drop for the day. The psychology of the owner is the limitation of the business. And that is so true. How the owner thinks really is it. So I really want to get back to your growth story because you talked about now going from working in your business to on your business, specifically to expand it. Now, your journey has been what I call the organic growth story. You started doing something, discovered another problem in there, and then solved that problem, discovered another problem in there when you said, okay, now we don't have enough suppliers here, so let's start manufacturing from raw materials here. So it appears that the deeper you've gone into this business, the more problems you've discovered that you can solve. And that's kind of been the expansion, how I call this like the river strategy, how a river breaks off into tributaries and smaller streams. Now, some people, when they want to expand, I've seen them, I've done it myself. You want to expand and you force yourself to just go into a different industry. And many of us have got horror stories about that kind of expansion. We have horror stories about that. So what's your advice to an entrepreneur who wants to scale organically the way you've done it? If they want to go through that and not have to force themselves to grow by jumping into industries they've never even touched before while trying to nurture this one, what has helped you get through this, where you've just kind of flowed into your growth?
Yeah, well, I think for me, it had to happen that way. I went in this with no experience. I've never run a business in my life. I had no idea what I was doing, you know? So starting small and then growing slowly allowed me also to develop myself, which is so important, as a manager, as a leader. So and also so I think it was a blessing. It's taken us a long time for sure, because we've done it organically, and we haven't had any real investment come in. It was just anything we earned, any profit just went back into the business. Every year it just went back into the business, and that's how we grew. It was completely organically. You know, we were very strict with ourselves like that. But what that has also allowed us to do is to build very solid foundations. And there's a lot to be said about that. Because perhaps when you grow too quickly, your foundations aren't there in terms of our accounts or operations or HR, you know, it just happens too fast. But for Umoyo, we grew slowly, and we put in the systems as we needed them. We put in the systems. We saw like, okay, that wasn't working. We made huge mistakes over here. We need to fix that. And we had time to do that. So what that has meant for us, this organic growth, is we have a solid foundation. And from here, now we can really launch, which is what we're about to do. You know, so there's a lot to be said for that slow organic growth. I'm certainly very grateful, because there have been so many lessons along the way, and I unfortunately had to learn the hard way.
I will agree with you 10,000%, because I think that's been the pivot that has driven me to. I mean, and I think it's so refreshing to hear somebody who's on that journey, like way ahead, to say, okay, it's like a cosign for me. That gives me that little heart warmth right there. But you know, there's, when it comes to diversification, because you sell a diverse range of products, what have you seen as the diversifications? Because everyone always tries to say, okay, I've got this one stream of income, I kind of need to split them. And I've seen people struggle between starting whole new products, or developing or taking the products they have or the services they have and finding new markets, new people who they can distribute that, getting better and better to. Which to you has been the path of least resistance? Taking what you've got to different uses, in other words, different uses for the user, or saying, I just got to find a whole new product now if I want to try and grow this business?
Well, our growth was kind of at a ceiling, because we were very niche. Health shops, it was very, very niche. And that's why for years we didn't really see any growth. And then when the kwacha started sliding in real terms, our income was coming down, kind of thing. So that's number one. So part of our growth and scaling our business was, how do we reach a broader market? And in Zambia, the market is quite small. You know, so for us, it was, how do we go from being niche to more mass market? And that we couldn't do with our health shops, but we can do it manufacturing healthy products from locally sourced raw materials. So that was number one. We're broadening our customer base, you know, by changing our focus and our products slightly. But it was, so scaling by going from niche to more mass market. That was number one. And in the future, how we're going to continue to scale our business is by continuing to invent interesting new products for the market, for the mass market. So we've started with our drinks. We have a whole range of drinks. And then, of course, our instant porridge, which is amazing, and we do peanut butter. But we will continue to innovate, because that's business. This is really innovation and marketing. Those two things are key. So we will continue to innovate and create new, interesting, healthy products for the mass market. So going from niche to mass market, and then increasing our product range.
So you've, and sorry, I know this is like a long thread of entrepreneurship, because this is what everyone tuned in for. They love Kim the health. They want to hear the entrepreneurial story, because everybody's really into this. So I love what you just said. Innovation and and marketing. Because three key skills I've seen in the journey has been problem solving, sales, and customer service. Like that's the baseline of any entrepreneur or value addition. You've got to be good at solving a problem, creating a solution, selling that product, selling that solution as a product, and then serving people well so that they come back for more. What are your top three skills? If different to that, what are your top three skills you think an entrepreneur should have in their toolkit?
Yeah. I think skill number one, and we've touched on this already, is you have to keep growing, personal growth. That is number one. Because if you don't do that, if you're not constantly trying to get better, it will filter out in the whole organization. So I think it starts with you. You got to be committed to that personal growth daily. The second thing that I think is a really important skill as an entrepreneur is you got to know yourself. You got to know what you are good at and what you're not good at. Because you don't want to waste time on stuff that you're not good at. You got to build a team around you who are good at the things you're not good at. So personally, I am good and love anything to do with strategy. I love innovating new products. I love branding, marketing. So those are my strengths. And I put a lot of time and energy into that. But then I have a great team as well. You know, we have a very strong accounts team and HR. And these are things that I don't particularly want to spend too much time on. But I have excellent people there. So the number two skill is you got to know yourself. Yeah. And then create a team around that to support your strengths and your weaknesses. And then the third skill that I think is absolutely key for an entrepreneur, well, not even just entrepreneurs, everyone, life skill is communication. Because as an entrepreneur, you're constantly communicating. You're communicating with your customers, you're communicating with your staff, your team, you're leading. It's constant communication. So becoming better at that going to help you so much, because it's through that communication that you can also influence people and lead people better. Yeah, so it's the personal growth, it's the know what you're good at and what you're not good at, you know, and then communication. I think those are three key skills.
Yeah.
If you're watching, write those down. Write those
And
down.
yeah, I'm so happy, Kim, that you talked about personal growth as a skill. A lot of people treat personal growth like I don't know, like a hobby. You know what I mean? And I am so glad that you have said it is so important for not just entrepreneurs, even anyone who is on their career path trying to excel. You have to keep growing in that path.
And just to add to that,
yeah,
it's not going to just happen. You're not just going to grow. You got to actually be intentional about it. You got to figure out what areas do I want to grow in, and then make sure you're doing something every day. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that.
True.
Yeah, I'm such a huge personal growth enthusiast. We even have like a personal growth book club where we're reading books every month on different topics just to be intentional about our growth. And hopefully the idea is that everyone can see which are their own areas and pursue that. So I really love that you brought that up. And just you've talked about you studied a lot in the field of the interests that you have. Are you generally a reader? Would you say that how important is reading when we speak about personal growth?
Reading is incredible. I mean, when you think of the amount of time people put into a book and the experience that they are drawing on, they can draw an experience of 10, 20 years, and they're putting it into a book that you can consume in like 8 hours. It's incredible, the resource. But for those who don't enjoy reading, these days you can listen. You got all, or you can get all these apps where they condense a thick book like this into something that small, and now we have podcasts. So it doesn't necessarily have to be opening a book and reading if that's not your strength. You can find so many other ways these days to get that information.
Yeah. Kim, are you a big Sorry, Munyumba. Are you like a big Tony Robbins follower, Jim Rohn? Because I'm hearing you talk about, a big book condensed into 8 hours, and I'm like, that's Jim Rohn. Then I'm
Oh,
like, oh, I
I didn't
like
know that
that.
was Jim Rohn, but yeah, I'm a
Yeah,
huge Tony Robbins fan. Absolutely,
me
yes.
too. Love them. Love those guys.
And
Yeah,
I want to get this question just out there. Are we
please.
expecting a Kim Otteby health book anytime, or a Kim Otteby book? Can we expect that in your lifetime?
If it was like 10 years ago, the book would be on health for sure. But now, if there were to be a book, it would be about entrepreneurship and mindset and leadership. And that perhaps, yes, but we'll see.
Please give it to us.
I would be the first one right
Please
in
give
the
it to us.
line for it. I'd be the first one. So just know that you've got some people here. So I love the fact that, Kim, you've built a company in the new age. This is the Zambia new age. This is 10 years ago, there was no Facebook in this country. Today, Facebook wins elections. It rises and falls celebrities. It creates TV shows. Like, social media has become powerful today, in today's world. So before this online era, we used to kind of refer to our users as customers and client bases. And today, I'm hearing more of this lingo switching towards communities. People are now talking about building communities, or a tribe effectively around their product. How do you define an Umoyo user, or your Umoyo users? Do you define them as your customer base, or do you define them as your community?
Well, the people who buy from us, they're customers, but what we are trying to do fundamentally is create a community. You know, um, we with the Umoyo brand, we want people to identify with the brand, feel like, yeah, this is what I believe in, what this brand stands for. That's me. I'm part of this community of healthy people, who want to grow and expand and live their best life. So, our brand values, like I mentioned before, quality, natural, and integrity, and we push those out, and we hope that people can align with that. So yes, creating community. And how do you do that? It's no longer about just pushing products onto people. You got to add value. You got to find ways of adding value. That's what it comes down to, because customers are becoming, much more discerning. There's so many options out there, so yes, it's about creating a community where can identify with the brand, and then how that company can add value to them. That's what it's all about.
And I think when you earlier talked about health, and you said, you've got to make it a part of your identity. One of the things I think that helped. I've struggled with health. I've gone up and down from, as I said, playing rugby when I was younger. I had a shoulder injury which lasted 10 years. It didn't last 10 years, but in my excuse catalog, it lasted 10 years. And it became my excuse for 10 years of not working out and getting healthy. Um, but one of the things I've noticed is, anytime I've joined a community, my identity managed to change. When I was part of a rugby team, I assumed the rugby player's identity, and that involved getting fit. When I joined a health community, Fitness Muya's health community, I assumed that identity. How strong do you feel? Because as I said, community has become this tool to help people get the identity they're looking for. How strong do you think this community has become, or community as a tool has become, in spreading your message, getting products out there, and getting people to make change, helping people make change?
Oh, I think it's huge. But, and that's why we do a lot of things. We do stuff on YouTube. I talk about, I try and add value by explaining certain products and health condition people online through our YouTube show. We do a podcast as well where we interview interesting people and somehow connected to health. And that's all about adding value. These are all free things, you know. We don't get any remuneration for that, you know. It's about adding value to the community. It's so key. But at the same time, there is so much more we can do, and we're working on this, you know. This is one of our goals going forward. How can we add more value? So we're doing things, but I think you can always do more. And I'm looking at areas where Umoyo can add more to its community and also create more of a sense of a community. So we are nowhere near where we need to be on that, but we see the value in that, and we want to do more. We want to contribute more, for sure.
So
That's lovely.
it's sorry, just one more thing. When it comes to your like you've just talked about the fact that you really go out to your community and you communicate a lot. You're constantly on YouTube. You're constantly. I actually listen to your podcast, and I feel the enthusiasm that you're actually in there with. And so many have said that, look, running a company in the future, every company is going to have to be a tech company, and every company is going to have to be a media company. Because today, to connect with your community, you're going to have to pump out valuable media out to them. Like you talked about, explaining health products to them. So in this period, and you've been on this for a while, as you said, you were writing columns for 7 years. You're doing podcasts, you're doing YouTube shows, you're doing everything. And then at the same time, there's the Umoyo app. Well, on the technology side, you've integrated technology to help. And I think obviously COVID probably forced that on you like it did everyone else. And you're probably moving in that direction. So do you think understanding how to use technology and also social media content management for community building are going to be critical skills that for the new Zambian entrepreneur? And what other ones would you add into there?
Whatever business you are in, social media is incredible. It's such an incredible tool that we all need to use to its full advantage. And it took me a while for me to really understand this, because I was not a big social media user initially. But I mean, to be able as a business, however small you are, to connect direct with your customers, with your community, that is mind-blowing. We weren't able to do this in the past. We had to go through big media corporations and things like this. So the opportunity that social media gives us is phenomenal. And we got to get good at it. So I would encourage everyone, you know, follow people who actually know what they're doing on there, you know, and model what they're doing, do what works. And you got to try and test this, you know. Before, we would put out a post maybe 3 times a week. That's not enough. Every day, several times a day. So I would encourage everyone, you got to become a master at social media, because otherwise you're leaving money on the table kind of thing. It's such an incredible resource in so many ways. I mean, just what you guys are doing now today, you're using social media to spread this incredible message. It's fantastic. So I think that's going to be key. And it doesn't matter if you're in technology or in like food manufacturing, like us. We got to learn how to use the technology in our favor as much as possible.
Kim, thank you so much. So many insights there, and we're running out of time. But before we wrap up, I really just want us to talk about mindset, because from the beginning, this has been a big word you have used. I am driven. I am, passionate. It speaks a lot to mindset. And I just want to hear from you, what is your definition of it? What is mindset, and why is it important for a journey like yours, or for someone who wants to get onto a journey that is similar to yours?
Oh, mindset. Yeah, mindset is so key. Mindset really is how you think about things and what you focus on. That's kind of, for me, how I would define it. I don't actually know what the proper definition is, but for me, it's how you think about things and what you focus on. And it plays such a key role in absolutely everything you do. You know, are you focusing on the positive or the negative? Are you focusing on what you can control or what you can't control? What, you know, so it really starts with that.
About that. So,
Yeah.
in to add to that, and there was a conversation on. I was watching a panel on Bloomberg's New Economy Africa Gateway Summit. So there was a panel discussion that was happening on how to get the best out of African talent. They're saying 2.0, how do we get young Africans to become more enterprising and to go out there and to do the best they can and to become the talent hub? And what they really talked about is it wasn't hard technical skills that were missing from Africa. We have access to a lot of this stuff. They were talking about soft skills. They were talking about growth mindsets. They were talking about practicing and becoming deliberate about things. But one of the key things that got me was one lady on the panel said Africans struggle with confidence. Well, I can tell you right now, Kim, you're an African, you are an African who does not struggle with confidence, or doesn't seem like it. So I'll give you that. And it may be because you're doing what you're passionate about. But would you agree? Because they were talking about they lack the confidence in negotiating. They lack the confidence to try new things, trying like you have, to try a therapy center, to try something. So would you agree that confidence is where we're struggling? And if so, what can we do to help young Africans build their confidence to go out there and try things?
You know, to be honest, I think it first starts with believing that it's possible. You can't do anything unless you first believe that it is possible. So for me, that's where it starts. And then I must go back to take personal responsibility. And this whole thing that if you have a dream, if you have a passion, the only way it's going to happen is if you do something about it. Nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to believe in it and be as passionate as you are for that particular thing. It has to start with you. And the confidence is not something you're born with. Confidence comes from trying. It's pushing out of your comfort zone, even just a little bit, and you do that. And then you feel, wow, I could do that. I'm going to push a little bit further. Confidence comes from doing things. It just doesn't appear, you know. The more you do, the more you can build that confidence. And that's why what you said about growth mindset, it's going to come back to growth mindset. Because when you have that growth mindset, you are going to allow yourself to push beyond your comfort zone and allow yourself to fail, because you know that's how I learn. And the more I beyond my comfort zone, the more I fail, the quicker I learn, the quicker I'm going to get to my goals. So perhaps there is something about that growth versus fixed mindset that, you know, if we have a fixed mindset, we don't expose ourselves. We don't want to feel like we're failing because we identify that ourselves with that, then I'm a failure. So I think if we can first believe it's possible and then shift to this growth mindset where it's okay to fail because I learn. And when I learn, I gain confidence and can push a little bit further. So I think anyway, that's how I see it.
So good. Love that. And then you had also talked about earlier, you had shared with us about the Umoyo values, one of them being integrity, which is something you saw from your dad, and also natural products. What is the relationship between values and your own personal mindset? I mean, you've already talked about the importance of a proper belief system, a solid belief system, but talk us through values. Why are they so important, and what role do they play?
Well, values guide us. You know, we behave according to our values, but values and mindset are so interrelated. It's very difficult to separate them. And I do believe that your mindset, to some extent, also will then determine the values that you have. And just as a simple example, if we look at fixed versus growth mindset, if I have a growth mindset, I'm going to value even making mistakes, because that means I'm learning. That means I'm growing. That means I'm much closer to where I need to go. Whereas if I have a fixed mindset, that's not something I'm going to value at all, you know? So I think just our mindset and how we think about things influence our values, and then that influences our behavior.
Earlier I gave the example of the interview I was listening to of Mr. Justin Smith, or as many in the hip hop industry call him, Just Blaze. He talked about the fact of when he was very young, he thought he would get in trouble for playing his father's piano, his father's keyboard. And then one day he was just there playing with it, trying to make music on it. He didn't know what he was doing. And then he looked around the corner and he saw both his parents looking through the door. And he thought, oh my goodness, I'm in such big trouble. I've touched my dad's keyboard. And they looked at them and said, keep going, keep going. You know, and he said it was that moment where he felt that encouragement that actually led him. So some people are talking about, maybe I may not be an entrepreneur, but I want to raise one. I want to raise a child that's got that confidence to try things. How much did in your journey, how much was the encouragement of either your parents, your friends, your family, how much was encouragement and a resource for you to kind of feed off that let you take that leap?
I am thinking about that. You know, I actually don't see myself as,
Yeah, and just to add to Munyumba's question, and what are you doing, or what would you say to parents in addition to that, to nurture that in children? From your history and what you
just to go, to go to children, maybe I'll start with that. You know, the growth mindset is key. Carol Dweck's work. You see, with children, we have to admire their effort in everything they're doing rather than admire their talent. Because if we admire their effort, so let's say your child produces a beautiful painting for you. They've drawn something really, really beautiful. And if you comment on that and say, oh my gosh, you're so talented, that's so beautiful, then it makes them think, okay, I'm good at this, you know? But if you say to them, oh, wow, you've worked so hard and I like the way you use the colors here, you're complimenting their talent, which is actually a fixed thing. You're complimenting the work and the effort that they put in there. And that is something that we need to foster. This thing that we can, if we put in the work and the effort, we can become better at something. It's not fixed. Because if we, as a kid, if we believe it's fixed, then perhaps we're scared to try new things, because if I'm not good at it, I immediately fail, you know? So I think how we praise our children is so key in developing that growth mindset. And there's so much information out there on the internet where parents can look into that and see how they can do that more and more. But as to entrepreneurship, like for me personally, I don't actually see myself as an entrepreneur, to be perfectly honest, you know. For me, a true entrepreneur is someone who sees a gap in the market and goes for it and builds the company, maybe sells it, and then goes into a completely different market and does the same, you know. That's not me. It will never be me. For me, like I said in the beginning, I kind of stumbled in this by following my passion. I could never get into business that I'm not passionate about. That is what drives me personally. But following my passion, I became this business owner, and now I'm developing myself as an entrepreneur. So I think some of it might be a bit innate. Some people are more suited for it than others. You know, you got to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. You got to be willing to take some risks if you're going to be an entrepreneur, kind of thing. Some people aren't so suited for that. But I think also there is another side to it that you can develop, which I have done for myself. So I think they're both there.
Sorry about that. We have, as we're winding up here, we have a few questions here from our
Yeah.
audience, and I'm going to put one up here. This is from Naomi. Naomi Mutalezulu, who's asking, I've been trying to work on things I'm passionate about, and I've been fighting to pick what to start with. Now, she says, did you start Umoyo and the gym side by side, or one after the other, and how did you go about it successfully?
I'm the kind of person that when I do something, I go all in, and that's my focus. And I think there's a lot to be said about that, like we discussed a bit earlier. So no, I did not start them at the same time. It came one after the other, but I started with Umoyo, and all my passion energy has gone into Umoyo. And then the gym was like a sidestep that I did for a few years. Now I'm back at Umoyo. So it's kind of what we were discussing before. You don't want to spread yourself too thin. And maybe at the end of the day, if you're good at many different things and you're passionate about many different things, you got to just choose one to start with. Doesn't mean you can't do the others in the future, but maybe just choose one and start with that and focus on that and see where that can take you.
And our financial freedom fighters group, we have a question here from Taonga who asked a question. Share, and I know you talked about this, but you talked about one of them. She said, share your most memorable pitfalls. If you could, would you be willing to share one of your toughest moments that you faced in Umoyo, and how did you get out of it, like psychologically and tactically?
Gosh. Well, I can tell you, there have been many. Okay, so there are many, but I can tell you a story that, which has to do with the gym. I'd been working on Umoyo for a long time, and I started getting more and more passionate about the fitness, and there was an opportunity with this gym. And I decided I'm going to do this because this is going to be fun. I want to try this. I want to push myself a little bit. And I essentially stepped back from Umoyo for 3 whole years. I distanced myself mentally, emotionally. I just stepped away, and I handed over pretty much all the responsibilities to a general manager and just focused on the gym. But in doing that, what I didn't realize at the time, and this is with hindsight, was that there was no longer anyone really driving the business forward. There was no vision for the business, for Umoyo I'm talking now, to drive it forward. So during that time, the business started going down, because if you're not moving forward, inevitably you will be moving back. That's just how it is, right? So that really taught me the lesson of how important it is to have a very solid, clear vision for your business. Because when I stepped away, I didn't leave a vision there. There was no vision. It was just, okay, just get on with things kind of thing. And they did great. And I'm so grateful. But the company was going backwards because I didn't have that strong vision for the company. So that was a huge lesson for me. And I guess I almost lost the company during those years because I wasn't there with that vision driving it forward. So the lesson of vision, and now that is something I spend a lot of time with and refining. What is our big vision? In order to get there, where do we need to be at the end of this year, and breaking it down into goals? It is so key, because if you don't know where you're going, you will never get there. You will not move forward, because you need that vision to get your team to move in the same direction, because otherwise some might be moving over there and some moving over there. So we need to know where we're going, and then the leader, of course, has to find a way to get everyone behind that vision and moving towards it, and that is what makes all the difference.
And one last question I think we got from you, and I really love this part about the vision, because I think it plays into this. I'm in another group called Hustle Nation, where it's a bunch of us young entrepreneurs talking together about what we're going through. And last week's discussion was about hiring, trying to find somebody to maybe become the next person to take, or maybe you've gotten through this. Many people are at this problem where they're struggling to hire. What is your philosophy on hiring? Do you think it's more about the talent people have, or do you think it's more about the values they believe in, and then you can train them in their areas of skill? What do you find more valuable when you're picking people to join your Umoyo family?
To be honest, I hardly look at CVs anymore because it is all about attitude. It is all about attitude. And that you can just pick up. I don't have to read their CV to pick up on that. So yes, attitude and values, that is key, because if you don't have the right attitude, you'll never do a good job, you know? So yeah, that's what it comes down to. So talent, no, we don't hire on talent, because you can be the most talented person and not work hard, and not have a positive attitude. It ain't gonna work. Another thing that I've learned over the years with regards to hiring is if it is not the right fit, you gotta do something about it immediately. Don't think it's gonna get better. It doesn't. You kind of hire fast, fire fast kind of thing. I do believe that if you're going to build a solid team, but once you have that team, you have to continue to invest in people, and you have to allow people to make mistakes. Because we are all learning, so that's another key. Allow people to make mistakes.
Kim, thank you so much. Thank you so much for tonight. We have so much to go and just chew on and think on again and again. You've given us so many things that we really need to work on, and we're so grateful that you made it tonight. You made the time. We're so thankful to your family for allowing us a few hours out of your time to be with us, to thank them for us as well. But before we come to a close tonight, was there something that you feel like you really wanted to leave us with, and you didn't get an opportunity to share that?
Perhaps one thing, because this is something that has been so important in my own journey and is important in my own life, and will be the determining factor in terms of me taking Umoyo to the next level. And that is, you have to take responsibility of the version of you that you show up with every day. Like tomorrow morning, Monday morning, before I walk into that office, I make sure that I am at my peak state. Monday morning, I have all my departmental meetings. If I walk in there not rested, in a bit of a bad mood or irritated, I am not going to be performing at my best. I'm going to get irritated quicker. I'm probably going to start pointing fingers. I'll get overwhelmed with what happens. But if I take responsibility, which I do every day, I take responsibility for the version of me that I show up with, and I make sure I show up in my best state so I can be the best version of myself, because only then will I be able to lead in the way I want to. I'll be a better communicator. I'll be able to see and navigate the way through and see the solutions more easily. And that is all on you. That is all on me. I have control over that, nobody else. And I think that is the biggest determining factor whether you're going to be successful or not, if you take that responsibility.
I think those are wonderful parting words. It lines up with something I love from Dennis Prager, who said, you have as much responsibility to brush your teeth, to wash away your bad attitude, as you do have to brush away you brush your teeth to remove your bad breath. He said you have as much responsibility for those two things every morning when you leave your house. And I'm going to take that from that. Kim, thank you so much. There's been so much excitement here. People are sharing this with their friends. We want to thank everybody who's been here, from Princess Bobby to Mubita to Mutale. Thank you to everyone. If we haven't mentioned you, Kondwani, if you got more questions, this is a wonderful thing. Kim, your story is inspirational. Your energy is infectious, and I can see that the life force of a company is the energy of an entrepreneur. That's one thing I really picked up on
100%.
from just talking to you. That you have been the heartbeat, and that has given everybody the opportunity to grow and to be what they need to be. So thank you so much. And I pray that this has inspired someone out there, somebody who may have been thinking, how do I get there? Hearing stories, by the way, Kim, of people like you, and telling us that you started from a room, you were living with your parents, you started in a room, you took a risk, and you built out from that risk, and you almost lost it. You walked away emotionally, you came back. Hearing those stories helps us all understand that the ups and downs are part of it. And thank you so much for being vulnerable enough to share those stories. So many people don't want to expose that vulnerability. So I cannot thank you enough for being open, coming here with us, and so forth. Whoopi, I don't know if you have any parting words, but once again, thank you.
Yeah. No, I'll be stalking Kim moving forward. And no, just to say thank you once again. This has been so good. I feel like this was from me. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, the two of you. It's been such a pleasure. I've enjoyed myself thoroughly, and I hope that someone inspired and can take something from my journey. So thank you so much for the opportunity as well.
Yeah.
And to everybody who has joined us today, and to everybody who has joined us here today, thank you. Share this with people. It's sitting on the platforms. Rewatch it, share it, let's talk about it. I want to hear more and more stories like you. Maybe it could be you joining us one day in the future on your story, telling us your entrepreneurial journey here on our Sunday Lives. With everybody here, from our F3 Army to Whoopi's Mindpreneur Book Club, and for everybody who's been joining us, thank you so much. We wish you a wonderful Sunday, and God bless for your week ahead.
Thank you.